Tell them run it up. I wake up. Yeah.
I wake up,
Flex.
thumb down now.
Check.
No drip this.
Wet.
Tell 'em run it up. No sleep, no
Rest.
Might crash, might
Wreck.
but first I
Stretch.
Tell 'em run it up. I wake up,
Flex.
thumb down now.
Check.
No drip this.
Wet.
Tell 'em run it up.
Powered by Q's.
Welcome to the Profit Rocket Podcast. This is episode number 24. I'm your host, Victor Rancour. Today I have a guest of mine, not only as a friend, but someone that I think is going to help you guys scale your business massively. Someone that's been in the industry for a long time. Mr. Charlie Cina, man, welcome to the podcast.
Victor, thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. So Charlie is actually the author of Expose and Close, which is a book that helps people that may not be the best salesperson or may not know how to open up that engagement with customers. It's a book that for someone that is maybe an introvert that wants to learn how to sell. It's a book that he authored that you guys should go ahead and check out. Where can you get this at?
Amazon.
Amazon. Go on Amazon, get Expose and Close. But he's also the owner and founder of One Tap Connect, which is, one of the reasons I brought him on is because it's something that I use within my business, and it's something that I think can help you guys exponentially. So, Charlie, welcome to the podcast. I'd like you to kind of first off introduce yourself to my audience and who you are, where you started, how you even decided to write a book, and we'll lead on to One Tap after that.
Well, if you woke me up in the middle of the night, Victor, and shook me and said, what do you do? Who are you? Sales professional would come to mind. I mean, at the end of the day, I love sales, and I didn't know it at the time. But when I was 10, 11 years old, I saw this guy delivering papers, and he was much older than me, and he used to come down the street in his Cutlass Supreme. So I'm a lot older than maybe a lot of your audience. Some of the guys that are listening might resonate, but I'd say, what is that guy doing? He was delivering papers. So one day I went and I said, hey man, I'm only 11 years old, but you're still delivering papers, driving a car. He said, well, I'm about ready to get rid of it. He said, do you want my paper route? I said, yeah, I want your paper route. And he delivered papers in a high-rise tower, one of the only high-rise towers that was in Kenmore, New York, a little town outside of Buffalo, New York. It was air conditioned in the summer, and it was heated in the winter. And Buffalo, as you know, is snow country. So I bought this guy, my first transaction as a kid, and I gave this 16-year-old kid, I'm 11 years old, $100, and I take over his paper route. And then that taught me how to knock doors. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was, building certainty. I was building confidence. I was learning how to overcome objection or rejection. So that was really my first business experience, and I really didn't understand how that helped me or progressed me in life. And I learned at an early age just from knocking doors to increase my paper route distribution that, the more doors you knock, the more money you make, the more you introduce, the more you produce. So that was my first introduction to sales. And from that, I've been in sales my entire life, knocking doors in some way, shape, or form, or picking up the phone and making cold calls and turning those into client relationships.
And I feel like a lot of people still look at sales as like it's almost a dirty word, right? And I look at sales, obviously, for me, sales has changed my life, right? Like I was doing oil changes for pennies on the dollar, right? Like I've had odd jobs from bussing tables, serving tables, doing construction. I mean, I remember breaking my back doing like masonry work, before I got into what I do now. And sales is probably the most lucrative business that you can be in, right? It's the most lucrative job you can have, but it takes a lot of time to build skills. And I think one of the things you're saying is like most people aren't willing to even step out of their comfort zone to learn sales. They just say it's bad. But once you really understand the science behind it, I feel like you'd be more inclined to do it. Do you feel that you were a natural salesperson, or were you somewhere that like, hey, I had to work on this? Like for me, like it came naturally to me. Like it's been like, I think my mom was in sales. Like it's just kind of embedded in me. I know how to communicate with people, but some people that are out there, maybe they're a technician or any position in the business, I just don't feel as comfortable with sales. Like, did it come naturally to you? How did you pick that up, and how did you kind of master it?
Well, I think my influence in growing up, my dad was a consummate entrepreneur. Now, I never knew my dad to be a salesman where he worked for a company and sold something. He had his own small businesses, but he had clothing stores and bars and restaurants. But my dad was a consummate promoter. And one thing that he taught me is the best business card that you could have is right here, right? It's reaching out a hand, shaking somebody's hand, making eye contact. And, you know, the art of human connection was taught to me at an early age, which as we progress, right, a lot of millennials don't even know how to communicate, right? I call them keyboard warriors. You meet somebody online, right? They're cocky, or you hold them at a certain level, you get in front of them and you say hello, and they can't speak. So to answer your question, I was just really taught the common courtesies. Hi, my name is, you know, what's your name? Teaching people how to feel significant. And then I did watch my dad, as a consummate entrepreneur, you know, put deals together. So from that perspective, I knew how to shake a hand. I knew how to introduce myself. I knew how to get attention. And as I progressed and I got my first, listen, through high school, I sold shoes. I was a waiter. That's selling, right? Selling shoes at a retail store. Waiter, you know, how do you upsell? How do you sell the desserts, the drinks, et cetera? So I've been in sales my entire life, but where I really learned was when I had to sell over the telephone.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and that was, you know, I'm going to be 57 here next month. Actually going to celebrate my 57th birthday. Was born on my grandmother's birthday. She's going to be 100. So I share that with you to say I'm not a youngster. So when I was coming up and selling on the phone, that was it. There was no automated dialer. There was no video. There was no internet. Yeah. You had to use the right words that triggered the right pictures, that triggered the right emotions to get people to say, yes, let's do it. And then you had to learn closing techniques to paint that picture all through the words over the phone and build trust and rapport. So I came up through that, and I think that was the best training ground for me, because as I progressed in life and all these other technologies came out, that was just icing on the cake for me. So the reason I wrote the book is to teach people those basic functions, or maybe teach them some word tracks to give them the edge.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because I mean I've done phone sales myself. So at 18 I started doing timeshares for the Marriott. So we sit down a dialer and you got to call people and you're like, hey, you want a free trip, and you want to get them out there. And I remember that was like one of the first sales jobs I had, and I didn't realize I was doing sales at the point. Like at that point, I didn't realize like I was just taking a job, and I knew they'd pay me a certain amount of money, and I was like, oh cool, I'll just do it. I didn't realize the skills that you have to obtain to work over the phone. And I transferred that into another job I was doing loan modifications in my mid 20s, right before I got into what I was doing now. I was doing loan modifications, so I had people would call in, and I got to sell. First off I got to vet them, I got to go through it, and I got to sell them on the company. Then I got to get them to send me $10,000 checks in the mail without ever meeting me. So phone sales is a lost art. But one of the other things that you just really said is that the handshake, and I think it's funny because this week I'm doing training with my staff, right? Mm-hmm. And they're all millennials. They're all early 20s to 25-year-olds. Maybe the oldest is 30 years old, right? And I'm sitting there, and we spent an hour learning how to shake hands. And I don't think people understand the importance of the front end of a call, the front end of a conversation, the front end of a sale. So many people talk to me. They're like, how do you overcome this objection? How do I do this? Or how do I close them? I'm like, dude, the close started when you first entered that door. And how you communicate to them, how you look at them, how you interact, how you treat them, it all starts at the beginning. So I literally this whole week I spent 3 days, 2 hours a day, so 6 hours practicing the first 15 minutes of a call.
But when you didn't call me,
yeah,
come on.
So I didn't know that that's kind of what, especially like this is what I'm trying. This is what I'm good at. I didn't even think about it as a sales professional and as an owner, as a trainer.
Right.
I didn't really think about it until last week, and I'm like, I don't know the last time I went through, because I keep going through all these objections and all these things, and the process is in the house. Dude, the front end of the call is going to decide if you're going to win or lose. So I literally spent 6 hours this week with my staff, just literally shaking hands, entering a home, communicating, asking the right questions, getting thought-provoking questions, understanding the customer, listening to the customer. And these things happen in the beginning, and a lot of people are like, I can't figure out why I can't sell. And I'm like, well, how'd you start the call? Right. And so it's kind of funny that you brought up the handshake things. I'm like, dude, I literally sat there and went through every single technician, and they're like, half of them are their freaking heads are down. They give me a freaking limp noodle hand. I'm like, absolutely. What am I going to do with that thing? I'm going to shake that thing. You know what I mean? So that's pretty funny. So now you've progressed. Obviously, you were, you learn those techniques. Now you're teaching those techniques. What were you doing, after that? Like, what were you selling to kind of lead up to where you're at now with One Tap?
Well, when I was in school, I went to school for hotel restaurant management. I had scholarships to finish up at UNLV, and I wanted to pursue a career in hotel restaurant management.
Nice.
While I was in school, I started selling ball caps and T-shirts and pens to contractors. General contractors, HVAC contractors.
Were you the guy with the big old book, the flip book, where they got to go through and all that stuff?
When I hear some of these youngsters go, "Oh man, I made 100 calls today," I'm like, "Dude, you didn't make 100 calls today. You hit that button and the automated dialer dialed until you contacted 100 people." Like when we made 100 calls, we had to dial 300 numbers, in hopes that you'd get 100 people, to say hello. And when we went push button, that was a big deal, bro. Like, it was easy. So when I hear people say they made 100 calls or they're working, I mean, now it's way easier to make phone calls. The issue becomes a lot of people don't pick up the phone now.
Yeah.
So when they do,
the connection rate's real low.
Right. So when they do, how do you properly present and position yourself to engage in that conversation? So what I learned is there is a formula. Some of you may know it. Maybe a lot of you are doing it, but it's introduction, build rapport, gain credibility. And then you need to identify the problem. I need an air conditioner. Who's the solution? Acme Air, affordable air, XYZ Air. But talk, Victor, is what?
What do you mean?
Talk is what?
As a friend?
No, I'm saying talk in general. When you hear people
talk
say,
is cheap.
Talk is cheap, right? But then you need to show me the truth, authenticity, and proof that you can deliver. Yeah. So if a tech's walking in or a salesperson's walking into a home, "Hi, my name's Charlie. What's your name?" "Victor." "Victor, nice to meet you. We're here from Acme Air or Affordable Air. We heard you have an issue with your air conditioner." You're just starting a conversation, right? Yeah. You want to connect with people. You want to build trust and rapport. You want to convey then who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. And then just start that conversation. Find out what their problem is and show them that you can solve their problem. But then you better back it up with some truth, authenticity, and proof that you can deliver. So, I like to say in this day and age, how are you both high tech and high touch? It's not just going to be about sending a text all the time or sending an email or what have you.
Well, I think that's the biggest issue right now is that, dude, I was talking about this the other day, dude. I had to fly out to South Carolina, right? And my fly to South Carolina, I had to stop in Newark, I think it's New Jersey area with airport right there in Newark. Yep. Never been there before, right? So, and I get out and I'm on my way to this training out there. And obviously a lot of my training is communication and customer service and all this stuff, right? I'm going through this airport in Newark and literally there is nobody working in the food court. Everything is a QR code. Everything's a computer. And I'm looking around. I'm like, I just want a fucking person to take my fucking order and provide me a goddamn service. Okay. Yeah. I can't figure this thing out. The thing I'm trying to touch it. I went to 4 places that would have got my money that day. And I finally ended up in the freaking slop counter because the only one person that was standing there was where you had to literally, it was like everything was into trays. And even she barely wanted to talk to me. And I'm like, dude, this world is so fucking easy to win. It's so easy to win right now just by having a little bit of customer service. A little bit of wanting to communicate to people, you'll win the market. Is that what you're kind of seeing out there? I know you travel a lot.
Yeah, and here's the deal. Personality. It's personal reality, and a lot of these people, their personal reality is this.
Yeah. Right.
They think they have a lot of friends on Facebook. So, people say, "Charlie, you're old school." No, I'm not old school. The art of human connection is dying because people aren't making an effort. And to your point, those that know how to do it or are eager to get out there and learn how to shake a hand or say, "Hi, my name is," and articulately tell people who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. That's key. Now, there's only one reason why I'm on this podcast right now, right? Let's backtrack how we met. I don't know if it was
so Lance. I'm in Lance's office. Lance is saying, I'm talking to Lance about my event, and Lance had met you somewhere, right? And he shook your hand in somewhere, and he says, "Hey, I got the perfect guy that would be someone that probably want to be at your event." So next thing you know, I'm on a phone call with you, Lance, and me within like minutes. Next thing you know, we're having a conversation. I get your phone number. You actually followed up, which most people don't, by the way. And this is something we talk about a lot in my training, is just the follow-up. And obviously the money's in the follow-up. You follow up. Finally get on the phone with me, because I'm a hard person to track down. And you were persistent, which most people and salespeople aren't persistent anymore. You're persistent. We get on a phone call, shows me the product, love the product, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that later. We love the product. Next thing you know, without me even doing anything, I didn't pay a penny to you. You said, hey, I built this out for you. And once I saw it, I'm like, oh shit, this is a badass product. And then next thing you know, like, we started creating a relationship. And then now I'm like, dude, I want this product to other people, and you got to come check it out. And next thing you know, you're on my podcast. We're going to be at events together. We'll probably be friends together.
Now, did you ask me to comp you a tap card because you were going to pay?
Yeah, I was going to pay. And
you didn't ask me to. I did it. Why? Because I'm looking to build a relationship. Yeah. And the reason I call this, when I sell now, I call it the transparent close. I'll literally tell people straight up, listen, I'm going to ask you for your business, and I'm going to transparently tell you that I'm here to close, and I walk them through it. What I'm saying is, with what we're talking about right now, this is real transparency of how I met a guy that I didn't even know. And quite honestly, I don't know Lance that well. I think Bill Rosell, that worked at One SEO for a long period of time, said, you need to meet Lance, right? I met Lance. Lance introduces me to you. I know you're a high-level player. I want you to see my product, not because I want your money. I want the relationship. And then, did I ask to be on your podcast?
No, you got invited.
Right. I got invited. So we're sitting here for the exact reason of sharing with your audience what they should be doing. And I'm not suggesting that you give away your product for free, right? I'm just saying that you'll know sometimes it's not always an exchange of money. It is about the relationship. And then you said to me, well, Charlie, I want you on my podcast. Where do you live? I said, Vegas. And you said, are you willing to fly out? And I said, yeah. So now I'm giving my time to be on a podcast, which I'm honored to do, knowing that it's not about money, it's not about time, it's about the relationship. And that's the sales that comes back to the sales conversation, or the ability to stick out your hand online or offline with transparency and authenticity.
And I think this is, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, how do I tie this into my business? And it's like, dude, this is how I grew my business. Like, everything in Absolute was grown off of relationships, right? Like, my very first customers were people that were in my fantasy football league. I just started texting everybody in my phone that I've ever even contacted with and said, hey, I'm starting an AC business, right? So I picked it up from there, and then I started going to B&I groups because I couldn't afford anything. So I started shaking hands there, meeting people, creating relationships, making them feel like I'm the authority in what I do. I've done everything from giving away free air conditioning systems. I've done all kinds of stuff, in the community, like all these things that it's like, I knew that it's going to cost me something, right? Because sometimes there's something you have to give up something to get something. And I knew that when I was doing this stuff, it made me feel great doing it. But I also knew that if I was putting out enough good in the world and did enough good things and right things to people, that eventually it pays myself back. And it's a similar thing with your business. Like, I'm not saying go give all your stuff away for free, but I've had plenty of instances where I've done a free event, right? I had a free event that cost me like $15,000 to put on. I put on this free event. Everybody thought I was crazy, but next thing you know, I got all these people that are now champions of me, and they like hanging out. I didn't even sell anything at the event. I just wanted everybody to come hang out and meet me. And they all met me, and next thing I know, a relationship with them. I'm buying their businesses or whatever it is. So if you're listening to this, like, just don't always think about now. Think about, 5 steps ahead, right? Like, we're not trying to play checkers here. We're playing chess. And this is how life is. And once you start playing chess is when you start winning. So anyway, so we can talk about that stuff all day. I mean, that's like relation. That's like 101 stuff. If you want to be a high level successful person, is how you build those relationships.
Well, it is, but for some reason, for a lot of people, doing it's complex. But if I can leave your audience with anything, how do you brand, position, and differentiate yourself? And to your point, you said, I just started telling everybody, right, on my fantasy football group or my B&I group, right, that I'm in the AC business. Well, guess what? 3% of the world wants to buy private labeled bottled water right now. And I'm just throwing statistics out. But the fact is, right, there's 3% of the people, if you talk to 100 that want to buy a phone today, there's 3% of the world that might want to buy some big pens that they need for their office. So the more you ask and make people cognizant of who you are and what you do, you're going to fall into deals because they need what you have. And then as you master these skills and you build these relationships, all of a sudden you wake up and you go, I don't know where that deal came from. Well, that deal came from the energy that you put out to the world and is now coming back.
Well,
Sometimes you just can't see it.
Even happens on like, dude, I meet business owners, and obviously I do consulting for companies, and dude, I meet business owners and I go to their Facebook. I don't even know what their business is. Like, I'm like, dude, if I went on your Facebook, I would literally have no idea what you did for a living, and you own a business. That is insanity to me. Like, for me, I use social media. That's the biggest free marketing you can use, man. I use social media for everything. I mean, you guys have all probably seen my reels, and they're probably the reason you're on this podcast is because you've seen my reels over and over and over and over and over again, right? And so many people are so scared to put themselves out there talking about what they do. If you're not proud about what you do for a living, then you're not doing the right thing. And that's kind of crazy to me. So anyways, let's fast forward a little bit. So you wrote this book. Obviously, you were inspired by it to write it for, people that might be struggling to put themselves out of that comfort zone. And for people that are thinking about writing a book, just so you know, you don't get rich off books, right? So books are meant to obviously help other people and give them some knowledge and stuff. But you want to talk a little bit about that for someone that's ever thinking about writing a book?
Yeah. So what prompted me to write the book is I had a good friend of mine pass away. And I'm like, man, he should have written a book, and he didn't. I talk about him in my book. I actually mentioned him before the podcast. His name was Vinny Bergman. He was one of the first guys back in the early 70s to take a car and stretch it into a limousine, like a stretch limousine. And then he started stretching Lamborghinis and Porsches. So all these crazy limousines, or these Suburbans now that you see that are stretched and everything in between, he kind of broke the ice for that. And I learned so much from him as a promoter, as a marketer. He was a self-made guy, street guy that came up the hard way. But anywhere I went with him, he'd shake a hand. Didn't matter if it was the person that was mopping the floor in the hotel lobby, or the chef, or the general manager of the hotel. If I traveled with him, he talked to everybody, and everybody knew who he was, what he did, and how he could help them. My dad was the same way. So as I got older, I'm reflecting on all these mentors that I had in my life that I didn't even call mentors at the time, but they affected me. So that's really the key. You need to forget about the word selling and think about the word presenting. And then when you know how to present yourself in a way that's unforgettable at the first point of contact, you'll get people's attention. You'll position yourself. What do I mean by that? You'll get the appointment, right? You'll say, hey, let's have a drink. Let's have a coffee. Can I stop by your office? You want to do a podcast, right? And then you profit. And it's not necessarily monetarily, right? You may end up building a genuine relationship with that person. So that being said, that's really the key to success. But that taught me how to move up the food chain, and from being on the phone, selling hats and key tags and pens to contractors. I then got into the deregulation of telecom in the 90s. Started my own small businesses. Got into home improvement in 1999. I didn't even know I was in the home improvement business. I used to call it the construction business. I did some consulting for a guy that was doing floor leveling and sound control flooring. You ever heard of Gypcrete?
Yeah.
So he had a company. He said, do me a favor, come in, redo my branding, redo all my marketing materials, and help me acquire the customers that I either lost or these customers that I can't get to. So I signed like a 4-month deal with him. At the end of the 4 months, I'm like, okay, I'm out. And he goes, no, I don't want you to leave. He goes, there's a lot of money in this business. I said, man, they'll throw me off job sites, brother. Like, I like to dress in sport coats and, get dressed up. I said, I'm not a construction guy. He goes, but there's a lot of money in it. Well, then he showed me the money. So I decided to stay. He told me to write out my commission program, and he screwed me, right? I was supposed to get, an $8,000 commission check. It was $1,500. Long story short, I said, either you pay me what you owe me, or you're going to have a competitor. Well, I contacted another company. I said, hey, I'll be the marketing arm. I'll go out and procure all this business. You give me my piece. We'll be a match made in heaven. And I got into that business and just started being the marketing arm for this other company, his competitor. Then I got into countertops. Then I got into flooring. Then I got into shades, draperies, furniture, and everything in between. Why am I telling your audience this? Because again, I didn't realize it at the time, the formula is the same.
Yeah.
If you've got a product, to your point, that you're proud of, you need to shout from the rooftops who you are and what you do. And that's all I did. I'd go in to sound control somebody's floor in a high-rise tower. This is when all the high-rises in the early 2000s were being built in Vegas. You'd come in and say, yeah, man, I'm from California. I'm a successful HVAC guy. It's my second home. I do your floor. You're like, dude, you're awesome. You did that quicker than you told me you were going to do it. I appreciate you. By the way, Charlie, who can do my countertops? Well, Vic, what do you need? Well, I need this. I take the measurements, right? I go bring them to my buddy that did countertops. Now, he wasn't my buddy. He came to me and asked me if I would rep his company. And before you know it, like we were turnkeying, multi-million-dollar property. So I'm very familiar with, home improvement, and I'm not an HVAC expert in any way, shape, or form, but the model's the same. I've been in home improvement. I know what the homeowner thinks when you walk in. And when you can, connect with people at a high level at hello and build that trust and rapport, they'll want what you have, and you won't have to convince them that you have what they need.
Awesome. So obviously you've been through a lot of jobs, and sounds like you've been very successful. What kind of led to where you're at now? So obviously you started One Tap Direct. Is it One Tap Connect? Yeah, One Tap Connect.
One Tap Connect, yeah.
Well, I keep wanting to say Direct, but at One Tap Connect, how long ago did you start that business?
I want to say I started it in 2017. It wasn't called One Tap Connect. A buddy of mine, who was a flooring contractor that I did a lot of business with, he's from Israel, brought his buddy over. His buddy literally got off the plane. They came to my office, and I didn't know this, but Jerusalem is like the Silicon Valley of that part of the world. So this guy gets off the plane, comes to my office, and my buddy says, if anyone can help you market your product, it's Charlie. And he showed me this digital card, and he wanted 50 grand to give me 50% of the company. I didn't like it. I almost did it, but I didn't like it. Something was missing. So then I started buying a bunch of stuff off the shelf. Again, there was always something missing, because a digital card is just an exchange of information. But they put it on a landing page. And then I had some other guys. I did an event in Vegas. They heard me speak. They said, oh, we can help you, take it to the next level. They got flaky. And then my wife just said, why don't you do this yourself? So it was like 2020, 2021. I reached out to a guy, said, listen, these digital cards are made by tech guys. They've never knocked the door, ran a lead, or made a cold call in their life. Here's what I want. I want it built around my sales process with calls to action. So when people use it, they can convert. So I started really selling this in 2021. I went to a roofing conference, got a booth. Some people that were there knew me because I had spoken at that conference in 2018 and 2019 before COVID. So they knew who I was and what I did. And in exhibiting there, we probably acquired, 150, 200 new customers. And I said, we got something here. But I said, oh, it'll be a cool little side business, right? If I make X, put my daughter through college, like, it's fun, I like it. But I was really giving it away to my clients as a value add. And then people just started calling me saying, hey, man, how do I get more? And then in 2022, the guy that I hired to do my programming and design, I called him to my house and I said, hey, man, we got something here. I said, do you want to be my partner? I made him my partner. And 2022, we officially called it One Tap Connect. And, this year, I literally, yesterday before I left, was with my director of operations, and we're going over the books. We're growing exponentially. So anybody that's front facing in any type of business that needs client acquisition loves our tool, because our tool allows you to have immediacy on a prospect. And what I mean by that is when you tap somebody's phone, you text this to them, or you use the QR code, what pops up is what I call a microsite, which is a cross between a mobile website and a mobile app. Doesn't require a download, but it immediately gives you impact and influence and helps people connect the dots again, so they want what you have. And that's how I got to this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've seen a lot of the tap cards and stuff like that in the past, and I think the thing that stood out to me was, like, just the possibilities of what you could do, right? Like, you know, obviously we made one for myself and it directs to all the things that I do, all my, not only all my social media, my phone number, all that stuff, but also, you know, little videos, and it also could add a bunch of stuff about what I do, right? About me. And I started thinking about, I'm like, okay, what can I do with my employees, right? Like I run an HVAC business, and I'm like, first off, we print a bunch of business cards all the time. They just float around my guys' trucks. They get destroyed. They get messed up. Don't really get used, and really not anything special, right? So like, okay, how can we use this? We can create one with it on there, and then they tap it. We got videos with like a little bit of information about how we do our installations, or we could have a promo in there. We could have a coupon. We could have whatever we want in there to direct that customer, like, hey, things that we do in the community and all these things that we can have on there, rather than just a regular business card. And that's what really caught my eye. I'm like, the possibilities of what you can do, and you can control everything that's on those things. So that, which is the cool part as the owner. But like now, dude, you link them right into your, hey, you go right to Google. If you have multiple Google locations, it can send you, hey, look, if you're out in Riverside, tap this and this Google location. You can have a video about how you do installations, or a video from the owner saying, hey, thank you for doing business with us. This is what our company's about. So I just started seeing all the possibilities of what you can do. And I'm like, man, this thing's amazing. Now, how do you get, you know, obviously you got to get it out to public, right? Just like anything else, you start a business. And so many people, they start a business and they hope and pray that customers are going to come to them. I got the best product on the planet. They're freaking pounding their chest. And I'm like, dude, no one knows about it.
That's right.
And I think that's the one thing I really liked and admired about you, is that, you know, you're not 34 like me, but you are out hustling me all day long. I mean, you just said you were at five different conferences over the last couple of weeks, flying all over the place, flying from Vegas to California, coming on podcasts, doing all these things. And just not even just the product itself, but like how he's going about and getting his product out there. People ask, how do you become successful? Well, everyone thinks it's overnight and easy, right? But what you're doing is something that most people aren't willing to do. And that's when you're willing to do stuff that most people aren't, is when you get the success that most people aren't able to achieve. So
Absolutely.
I think that's pretty cool.
And I got something for you, Michael. Will you give that to Vic?
What's this one?
So we've got different accessories, right? Because everyone's in a different spot. So listen, if my feet are on the ground, I'm on stage. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm working. And I've been on podcasts before, and people go, you know, some guys will go, you're weird. I closed at RoofCon a $12,000 deal because I met a guys who were washing our hands coming out of a bathroom. Washing my hands, hey bro, what do? I tap his phone. Now I tapped his phone with my consulting one tap. He goes, where'd you get this app? I said, it's actually my company. He walks to my booth. He's got a solar company. He spends 12 grand with me. I met him in the bathroom. We have these accessories, wristbands. They're chipped. We have bumpers for the back of your phone. So if you're at the gym and you don't have your business card, right? The bumper. Now here, slide this out, Vic, like this, hold it like this and slide it out. I made you something a little extra special.
Oh, sweet.
Take a look at that tap card I made you.
That's pretty sweet. That's dope.
Huh?
That's
Custom
dope.
tap profit rocket card. So we have the tap cards, we have the bumpers, we have key tags. These are transfer mechanisms. So no matter where you're at, you're doing business. People say, well, you know, I'm at church. Well, at church, when they invite you for tea and coffee, guess what? And they say, what do? You should be able to tap somebody's phone. And then this allows you, I don't know if this is.
Well, you could even, like, you know, just looking at this as a branding point, like this could be in your technician's pocket, right? And then you can have your logo on this. So you can have, you know, Absolute Airflow or whatever your company is, and the logo on the back, and then they have the scan card on there. So if you guys don't want to tap the phone, they still have a card they can scan right there, and, you know, obviously cut the time.
But again, what we're doing is building a site to where everything's right there. Your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, testimonials, before and after shots of your installs. And again, this has been built around introduction, build rapport, gain credibility, identify a problem. I need a new AC. Who's the solution? Right? Affordable or Acme or whatever the company is. And then all your truth, authenticity, and proof is right there. And then the cool thing is we have a whole training that goes with this, Vic, and it sits on people's phone just like an app. So we've had great success with it. And I literally go to work every day and have people, you know, texting me or emailing me or calling me on how it's made a difference in their life or their business. And I'm having a lot of fun at this point.
Well, man, I'm excited for you. Obviously, you're making a run. I think you're building something awesome, right? Like, I think you're building something that's going to be not only impactful to yourself, right, but also impactful to your customers. So I think a lot of people, don't understand like what it feels like to watch your customers win. And that's one thing, like, obviously it's always been a passion of mine is watching my customers win. And I think like this is a product where you get to say, you come back a year from now and they might be back at that same conference and they're like, they might be your biggest champion for it. Right. And I feel like it's one of those things where I saw it and I'm like, okay, I told a bunch of people and started sending it. I'm like, hey, I want that thing too. So what's the best way to contact you if they want to check out the product or meet you or anything, man? How do they reach out to you?
Well, charliecina.com is my personal website for my consulting and coaching company. And then onetapconnect.com is the actual networking product, the actual microsites that we're building for contractors nationwide. And I believe Michael is going to put that link up there. And anybody that does want it, I'll do something special for everybody that's a member, a follower, or anybody that is part of your group. We'll make sure we take good care of them.
Yep, just mention the Profit Rocket podcast and Charlie will take care of you guys. So Charlie, man, it's pretty awesome to hear your story. And obviously it's a good story to share to my audience. And I think that, there's definitely some bits and pieces you can take out of this podcast. And that's what I always tell you guys. You're tuning in to hopefully learn something. And if you could take one or two things out of this podcast that you can take back and you can implement immediately to help impact yourself, your life, your business, then it's worth it to me. So thank you guys for tuning in. Charlie, thanks for coming on, brother. Any last words you have for the audience?
Listen, you have to keep going. I tell my son, he's in the insurance business, same thing. What business are you in? You're in the client acquisition business. So whether you're HVAC, insurance, you sell pools, you sell water, doesn't matter. You're in the client acquisition business, you're in the distribution business. And those days that you seem like you want to throw in the towel, Victor will tell you, don't throw in that towel. Wipe off your forehead, take a deep breath, take the next step, because success is literally right there. You could be at the 90, or you could be at the 1 yard line, and you're ready to score that touchdown, and you deserve it. So I love what you said. You said nothing makes you happier than when you watch your customers win, and that is true. And we should all be doing the same thing.
Awesome. Charlie, it was a pleasure. I'm sure I'm going to see you again. I'll see you around. I'm going to be in Vegas the next couple of weeks. So I'm sure we'll probably hang out and grab some dinner or something like that. And then if you guys are going to be at the Profit Rocket Growth Summit, Charlie should have a booth there, or he plans on having a booth there. You can come out, check him out. Hopefully by then you're already a customer. If not, come check it out in person. Charlie, it was a pleasure. Thank you guys for listening in to the Profit Rocket podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe on either on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. And hopefully invite some friends, right? I do this to help you guys grow, to help your businesses grow. So all you guys can do, all I ask is hopefully you guys invite a couple friends and share this video, share this podcast so I can help more people. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and happy 4th of July if I don't see you.